few weeks, Vida and I have been enjoying truly our visit to this beautiful country. Beautiful in many ways. Natural, its people, which is the most important one, the richness of Japanese culture, but also the many abilities that the people of Japan have. And you can say, how do you know about the Japanese capabilities? I don't think there is anybody who knows the world and does not know how much this world is a better world because of Japan's technology. In fact, it is Abdul Baha who has said the people of Japan have astonished, this is the word he has used, has astonished the world with their material development. But at the same time, there is a level of loving care, respect, consideration, the spiritual aspect of life that is also part of our Japanese life. And this rare combination of appreciation for technology, but also appreciation for the other aspect of life, is a rare combination in the world, I assure you. If you travel the world, you will find that that is rare. And so it is a capability, very special capability that the Japanese have. And it is in the light of that capability that once and when they become fully aware of the nature of Baha'u'llah's message, they will take it to heart and they will then help the world to be illuminated. If that is a promise to us by Abdul Baha and by Shoghi Effendi, friends, we must be confident that it will happen. When you have a baby born and it can hardly breathe, it can hardly drink, it cannot take care of itself in any way, and someone tells you that that baby one day will fly to the moon, would you believe it? You would only say, maybe with time and maybe with education. That's exactly we have to think of Japan and its contribution to the world. And so it is in the light of that concept that Vida and I have been enjoying our time in Japan, benefiting really from the experience. Those of you who have pioneered to Japan many years ago, those of you who have become Baha'i, you are Japanese and you have become Baha'i many years ago, and those of you who are, as Son Hassan jokingly says, they are undercover. They are Japanese, but they don't look Japanese. They are really truly Japanese, it's just a different version of Japanese. Because the culture, the language, the attitude, everything is beautifully Japanese. These are all elements of a foundation that is being built on which Japan will arise in due course to help the world. Did we ever thought that those 18 people who in Iran had no clue what the revelations of the Bab is? They didn't even know what the claim of the Bab is fully. They hardly knew the rest of the world, but they gave their life because they knew this is the solution and the salvation of the world. 18 people began this process. Today you and I are speaking about it in Japan. So our history is full of adequate reasons and proofs that what the promises in our holy writings will all materialize. So I'm just trying to, and then for us who lived in Africa for so many years and saw the transformation of that continent. You know, friends, we don't have time, but I can tell you populations that we know, Vida and I know, who 50, 60 years ago only, their only concern was how to survive from one day to another in terms of hunger, food, shelter. Such population today, because of their appreciation of Baha'u'llah's message, today are recognized by the government of the country as a community, the Baha'i community, that is providing 10 lines of education for the transformations of society to the whole country. Only in 60 years. Show me one development program in the world that has had that impact on people without creating any side effect, without creating an additional problem. So the message of Baha'u'llah has the power to make us change us, so that we can also help change the world. These two are inseparable. These two is what the Universal House of Justice refers to as the twofold moral purposes. It's one purpose, transformation, but it has two angles to it. Our individual transformation and our contribution to the world to change the world. And it's not that, oh, we do ours first and then the world, or let's do the world and then we will come to. The two are interconnected. As we do both, one affects the other. Anyway, friends, you all know this. The reason I'm saying it is that on one hand, the message of Baha'u'llah seems to be very pleasing to the heart, very profound, and in a way easy to understand. But the reality is, the job to be done is very tough, it's challenging. And the only way to do it, and the only way to have perseverance to do it, keep doing it, Javaheri says, is for the friends to understand the nature of Baha'u'llah's message. That's one. We need to understand, read, meditate, reflect, and talk among ourselves to understand the nature of Baha'u'llah's revelation. One. Secondly, he says, the friends also need to know how the faith of God, the Baha'i faith, how it works. The way it works is not the way you and I work. The way we work, it's not the way we deal with our children. We need to learn from it, but we need to understand how the faith operates. And then third is to basically see what role can I play in this process. And it is true to say that Shoghi Effendi spent all his life to help the Baha'is do these three things. All his letters and books and written guidance is to help us understand the nature of Baha'u'llah's revelation. It is all for us to see how the faith of God works, and then explaining what individuals can do. So you can see that we have discussed about it. We know what Baha'u'llah wants for this world. And there is no pretension that that's going to happen tomorrow. It will take a long time to come. And it's true that you and I, individuals, have to do it. But are we already equipped enough, good enough to build the world? I would say we are not. So, individuals, communities, and institutions who are supposed to be the three protagonists of the plan, none of us are who we are. So we have to work on ourselves to become who we are, so that we can build the world that Baha'u'llah wants us to have. So, the writings of Baha'u'llah, the principles of Baha'u'llah, the laws and ordinances of Baha'u'llah, we have to remember, is for that world to come. Unlike religions of the past, who had a series of laws and ordinances, that's what you do, that's not what you don't. That's what you don't do. And the idea was that some people, often in the name of priests and clergies and mullahs, will enforce this. That's the concept of religious laws that other peoples have. Whereas in the Baha'i faith, our concept of laws and ordinances is that, all right, these are the laws, or these are the examples of laws that are needed for a better world. Baha'u'llah has revealed some, and Baha'u'llah has on purpose left out many of the laws not revealed, but instead has revealed the universal house of justice and said, because many laws have to change according to the needs of the time, the universal house of justice will legislate under my guidance, under the guidance of Baha'u'llah. And they can also change their own laws because it's their own laws. What Baha'u'llah has revealed remains fixed, but what the universal house of justice would reveal and legislate can change by the universal house of justice. So you see, right from the beginning, the difference. We are designed as a community to be able to stay in the forefront of the work of progressive work. We will not say, oh, this law was 200 years ago and things have changed and it's not applicable. And a bunch of priests and clergies will try to enforce it and people will refuse it and create confusion. We will never have that. So, those laws and ordinances that Baha'u'llah has provided are the ones that are the fabric of society. It's the foundation. And those, even if you see them not so fully understood today, well, because the society has to change to fit into those laws. You see, when Baha'u'llah says equality of men and women, that's a law. 150 years have passed and the world is still struggling to apply it properly. Doesn't matter. We are changing the society. We are building a society in which the law of equality of men and women will work. That's the concept of laws and ordinances. The other point to remember is that the religion of God does not come to tell us what we like. You don't tell your children only what they are pleased. What do you tell your children? We tell them what's good for them, right? And Baha'u'llah in one of his statements says the religion of God is to safeguard the interest of human race. I suggest we memorize this. To safeguard the interest of the human race. You see, safeguard means to protect it. He says the interest, not what you like, what you don't like. It is what is your interest. A child's interest is to go to sleep in time, but they may not like it. So what do you do as a parent? You say, no, you go to bed, because it's good for you. So when you look at the laws of Baha'u'llah, we don't run into this habit of, oh, but I don't like this, but this makes me this, but makes me that. God is trying to, and then it's not safeguarding the interest of just the Japanese, or the Persians, or the Americans, human race. So you see that the laws and ordinances are also part of the bigger picture of the message what Baha'u'llah has come to achieve. So key number one for us to try to understand the nature of the concept of ordinances, laws and ordinances. Very different from the past religion. In the past, laws and ordinances represented limitations. Oh, I have to follow this, so I'm limited, I cannot do this. Well, think about this. If you want to drive in your city, you want to be free to drive wherever you want to go, right? The only way to do that for everybody is to follow the traffic law. If you decide, no, I want to go this way, another one wants to go that way, there will be chaos. Nobody will be able to drive. So the appearance of a system of laws and ordinances, Baha'u'llah says, is true freedom. It is within that concept that we will be free. And who are we? Is the human race. Unlike the past that every nation, every population was thinking of their own, today humanity has to think of the entire human race as one family. Okay, so with this in mind, Baha'u'llah also says laws come and go. Laws changes. But he says one law will never change. Listen to this beautiful statement of Baha'u'llah. He says, no doubt that in every age and dispensation, all the divine laws and ordinances are changed and altered according to the requirements of the time. Isn't that true? Laws and ordinances change according to the needs of the time. He says, except the law of love, which, like a stream, floweth continuously, and whose course never suffereth alteration or change. So he's telling us one law will never change. That's the law of love. God loves us. Whatever he does is for his love for us. And by us loving God, we get all the inspirations. That law, he says, is not changing. Isn't that beautiful? To think that when we think of law, we think of all, as I said, things, don't do this, don't do that. But law, the concept of law, is the love, is a law of God. And then Abdul Baha explains this, that within each revelation, within each religion, there are some laws that change simply because times have changed. And there are some laws that are basics and spiritual, and they will always remain the same. Laws of kindness, respect, cooperation, many of the wonderful qualities that you see in the Japanese way of life are really those spiritual laws that will not change. What I believe, from my very limited experience in Japan, I would say, what we really need to assist the friends in Japan to understand, the population in Japan to understand, is that that's not all the spirituality. That was the initial step for spirituality. Today, Abdul Baha's spirituality, who is a Baha'i, is the one who loves mankind. What is the spirituality? Is to be able to clean your hearts from prejudice. What is the spirituality? Is to establish the harmony between science and religion, equality of men and women, and all the principles that helps bring humanity together. That is the new spirituality. And it is that the Japanese culture will benefit from help to say, while I have these basics from the old religions, I also need to embrace the new concept of spirituality from the new concept of religion, which is the message of Baha'u'llah. So when you read, among the writings of Baha'u'llah, we have the Kitab al-Aqdas, we have the Book of Law, we have the Mother Book, that is also referred to as the Book of Law. For us, it's good to remember the context of these laws. The very same law, Shoghi Effendi refers to the Kitab al-Aqdas as the charter or the blueprint of the world civilization. So the purpose of these laws are not to limit you and I as what we can do, what we cannot do. The purpose of these laws is to see how that world civilization will function. So if you remember the Kitab al-Aqdas, the first paragraph of the Kitab al-Aqdas, it says there is a twin duty on everyone. Recognitions of God and the following of His laws and ordinances. And then he says, these two are inseparable. How do you recognize Baha'u'llah if you do not strive to follow his laws? And it is by following his laws that you actually recognize him better, who he is. Baha'u'llah says he has come to put the world in order. So, how do you put the world in order? First, you have some laws and ordinances that talks about our individual behaviors. On those individual behaviors, for instance, you say that you pray every day. You have actually daily obligatory prayers. These are maybe new to many parts of the world. But I think it's good to also understand its purposes. But he also says that another law on a personal basis is the study of the writings of Baha'u'llah every morning and every evening. Just let's think of these two. What does these two do to us? In prayers, we ask God what we want Him to do for us. In reading the writings, God tells us what we want to do for Him. So it's only fair enough. The combination of the two makes us feel very strong to see that I am actually connected to God. I am His creature. As creature, I am here, I am weak, I am unable to do many things, but with His help, I can do everything. He has given me a brain, but He has also given me a light that throws that light into my brain. That brain works a lot better. Just the way we were, I don't know if it was here or in Takamotsu that we were talking about. You see, friends, a seed, for a seed to grow into a tree, if you put 1,000 seeds here heaped together on their own, they'll never grow. So to develop the capacity of the seed, they need rain and they need sun. And the rain and the sun are external to the seed. It does not come out of the seed. Abdul Baha uses this analogy and says, in the same manner, human beings to grow and develop capacity, they need the rain and the sun. And that rain and the sun is the writings of God. So the concept is very scientific. Anything that develops needs external help. And we are the most sophisticated creature in this world. Our exterior is God and the messengers of God. So the laws and ordinances are trying to develop our capacities. The seed, I don't know how does a seed think or speaks, but when the water penetrates and the rough skin, or what do you call it, the crust, it wants to crack. Maybe the seed doesn't like it. Maybe it says, what is happening to me? That's painful. Well, but if you don't do that, the root system doesn't get into this vast field and the leaves don't come out. You see, it's the beginning of your growth. So if we feel at all any limitations on laws and ordinances, that's how you develop. A child that is about to be born into this world goes through pain. But that's the beginning of a development that he cannot imagine. So it is good to know the laws and ordinances are an instrument, a way for us to develop our capacity. And these laws, as I mentioned, they govern individual behavior, relationship between individuals, and the governance of society. Look at it that way. When you read the Kitab Aqdas, and when it is the establishment of the Universal House of Justice, that's a law. And that is a structure that is needed for the world to be seen as one country and mankind its citizens. When it reveals the obligatory prayer, it's to help us. You see, and how kind God is today as different than in the past. You have an obligatory prayer, the concept. But then God says, God knows we are different. So He says, okay, I'll give you 3 choices. One, very small.
one a little bit longer, and one very long. Choose what you want. But you choose, whatever you choose, you have to do it every day. So there is a blend of safeguarding our interest, but at the same time, freedom. The only incentive for our doing the ordinances of Baha'u'llah, he says, observe my commandments for my love, for thy love for me. We don't do these ordinances for the fear of punishment. We don't do it for the sake of going to hell. We don't do it for the sake of punishment, because nobody is going to check on me as whether I'm saying my prayers or not. It's me and Baha'u'llah. But because of his love, because of my love for him, I do, and I harvest the benefits. You remember the first we said, the law of love will never change. So it is with that context, when you look at the law with this new vision, with this new understanding, then you realize that Baha'u'llah says, do not think that I have brought you a mere code of law. What is a code of law, friends, in Japanese? A code of law, the way I understand it, the origin of this comes from Islam, where there is a code of law. What you do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What you don't do, this. That's the most you can understand. So it comes to say a Muslim doesn't do this. Why? Very little explanations, very little logic. And therefore, a code of law is harder to digest. Baha'u'llah says, don't think I've brought you a code of law. I have unsealed the choice of wine. Why did he use the choice wine? I don't know. But I can tell you what I think. So first of all, it's the choice wine. You can choose. You can choose to recognize Baha'u'llah or not. But if you choose, why are you making that choice? It's because you want to grow. You want to develop your capacity. You want to be a person who contributes to the betterment of the world. But also wine. Wine, I don't know about this culture, but wine is also a symbol of freedom. You don't even want your brain to work. You want to be free from any limitations. Baha'u'llah says that freedom is in following my commands. I have come to give you that freedom. But because you are not alone in this world, for everyone to be having that freedom, act within this framework. So we really need to understand the ordinances of Baha'u'llah as a way to improve ourselves, to be that golden individual, golden brick, which can be part of a golden society. You do not build a golden dome with clay bricks. There is a need for the bricks to be also golden. So in our efforts to become golden, and part of the golden civilizations of Baha'u'llah, we strive to follow his ordinances. But at the same time, we realize this is how everyone then will be free. And these laws and ordinances have not come just for the sake of one nation or one group of people. So you remember this quote from the Kitab Aqdas when he says, think not that we have revealed unto you a mere code of laws. Nay, rather, we have unsealed the choice wine with the finger of might and power. And as I mentioned, this is particularly a reference to the Islamic concept of laws. That was a code of law for, and then for everything that you do, this is the reward, and if you don't do, that's the punishment. It's very much like a, I don't know, how do you behave in a I don't know, in a prison or, yeah. But he says this is the way to the freedom of people. The other concept that is important for us to know, and it demonstrates the purpose of the laws and ordinances, is the fact that right from the beginning, Baha'u'llah established a progressive, a gradual way of applications of the law. He revealed the Kitab Aqdas, but he withheld, as you know, for 4 or 5 years before giving it to people. Because he said he is just waiting for the right moment. And some of these laws are easier understood by a group of people in some parts of the world, and some are not easily understood. So, for instance, when he talks about no confession, the Christians relate to that easier because that was part of their culture. When they talk about monogamy and only one wife, one husband, the people of Islam, they see the difference between it. And so on. Every law has different understanding by different people, but what is important is for the first time, the law is for the whole world, but because people have different understanding, Baha'u'llah has said this needs to be gradual. And so if there are laws and ordinances that is harder for one part of the world to understand, harder, be gentler, be slower, because the aim is not to disturb the society. The aim is to educate the people to see how important these laws for them are, and then at some point they begin to observe it. So, you know, friends, I think we can go on talking more about this, but I also think that it's good to remember that even maybe I won't be able to get as an individual, let alone in 1 hour here, understand fully what the laws and ordinances and what the purpose of Baha'u'llah is. So to me, if you ask me, one of the most genius, I can't say clever because God is clever, but I think Baha'u'llah is very clever by having these 2 laws that I mentioned first. Pray every day and read the writings every day. If we choose these 2 to start with, I think the rest will follow. The rest will follow in the most beautiful way, in the way that each one we will be eager to do the rest rather than fear or whatever. And so prayer, we know that we have so many prayers for so many different occasions, but don't forget that we also have the obligatory prayer. And you know, there is this story, this is personally I've heard from the people themselves. There was this couple who the wife was a priest in a Christian church, and the man was an atheist. The man was very unhappy in life. The woman, the wife, was kind, trying to help this man. And no matter what she did, he would not go to her church. And so this poor wife was trying to find anything that will make the husband happy. So this religion, this church, that church, no religion, a sports club, nothing will make the person happy. She said, one day I saw in one of these small towns in the United States an advertisement by a name that appeared Persian, saying that there is a fireside in my house. And she said, I had no idea what do they do in a fireside. So I told my husband, would you like to go there? And she was saying, I had no idea. It's just in my search for things to help. So the husband refuses, doesn't want to go, but the wife insists. And the person goes. The man, this disgruntled man goes there. And who is there is this Persian lady who hardly speaks English. And she expected other people also to come, but nobody shows up except this man. And that lady, out of her enthusiasm, she tells him that today I would like to talk about the long obligatory prayers. This is true story. And to this man who was dying by being bored, this woman keeps telling about the long obligatory prayer. And this man doesn't know what to do with himself. So finally, the end of her lecture comes, and she says, basically, any question? He says to me, basically, this is nonsense. I don't believe in any of this, what you say. And then he begins to talk about how unhappy he is in life. And this lady says, if you say this prayer for 1 month, every day, I promise you'll be happy. Just out of blue. And this man, what would the man do? The man says, okay, give me. So she gives him the text. She comes home, and the wife says, how is it? And the man is fuming, says, absolutely crazy, nonsense, that sort of thing. And he tells his wife. But the wife, who was after a message for this, for a solution for this, he says, but how do you know that she's not right? And now, remember, she is a Christian priest, but out of desperation. How do you know she's not right? And basically insists, why don't you say this prayer every day? So this man, who is also desperate, every day he says the obligatory prayer for 30 days. At the end, the wife says, how was it? He says, absolutely, excuse me, that's the word used, rubbish, wrong. I have no change. And the wife says, okay, if you no change, leave it. I'm not insisting. So the man gives up saying the prayer. 2 or 3 weeks later, the man is again very crazy and unhappy and so on. Thank you. And complains to the wife. And the wife says, I can see that you are not happy, but I tell you that in my observations, you were a lot calmer for those 30 days that you were saying the prayer. So why don't you this time go back to the prayer, say it, but with no expectations in your mind. Just calm down and say this prayer. So the man goes back, says the prayer. The rest of it, friends, is history. Both these people are Baha'is, and they have been pioneering in Africa in the past 40 years. But the entrance was the long obligatory prayer. So that's not to say that's going to happen to everyone, but that's going to, when Baha'u'llah says, in these prayers, there are powers that can work on our soul. If we believe that Baha'u'llah is saying the truth, believe in it. And don't worry about whether this is the norm of the society or not. Don't worry about this looks unusual. Well, Baha'u'llah, who knows who we are and who our soul is, say, do this. And we'll see the benefit. But at the same time, read the writings every morning and every evening. Baha'u'llah says, only to the extent that you are not bored. Look how clever he is. So you could say, you can argue to yourself, I get bored after 5 minutes. Fine, stop it after 5 minutes, but do it. The discipline that you need to have a way of life that you can read 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening, the writings, and think about it, that discipline will do us very good. Because we have to have some way, friends. How do we feed our soul? We keep eating for our body. Imagine if you don't eat. After a while, you may not even know, but you'll be miserable. We need to feed our soul. And that feeding of the soul is the reading of the writings of Baha'u'llah. And the rest will follow. I don't think we need to go into any further. But just to know that when Baha'u'llah says, I have come to put the world in order, yes, he has the laws for us to behave in a certain way. He has a way how a family should be structured and how within the family we need to act, because the family is the unit of society. And then he has laws for how the society must move on in order to the world to move towards the aim that he has for humanity, but also then to maintain it. That's it. I think we have talked enough. Maybe one other thing is that there are some society, and my guess is that Japanese will be one. They have such an attachment to the past and to traditions that if something is against the tradition, it's harder to break from it. That's understandable. That's understandable. But you also imagine, friends, if Japan did not want to change its material way of life 150 years ago. Would you still be happy? Japan has changed. This Japan is not the Japan of 500 years ago. This Japan is not the Japan of 200 years ago. At some point, you began to change materially, easier to change. In the same way, we need to think that our spiritual life should also change. I don't need to advertise what I'm doing. I don't need to force anybody to do what I'm doing. But I also don't have to allow the fear of being different from others to stop me doing what I know is good for me. So that is one. I mean, there are many other things that one can talk about. To me, you could get together friends and benefit from the art of reflection. We were talking with one of the friends about the art of reflection. Reflection, friends, is an art. How to get together and reflect on any subject that we want. Art being an art means that you should be able to state what you think respectfully without anybody being hurt. You should be able to talk, to express it very briefly so that others can also have a chance to express. And you should be able to not think what you think is absolutely correct. Allow room for other views to come. And by hearing different people, you reflection. So one of the reflections useful in Japan would be, how do we as individuals, we cannot get involved in each other's life. We are free, each one is responsible to Baha'u'llah. But you could say, how can we as individuals and or as families be more effective in observing the laws and ordinances of Baha'u'llah in our personal lives? Just an idea. There are ways. So if you find it difficult to do, okay, that's the way, that's the reality. No big deal. Nobody is pushing. But if we understand the revelations of Baha'u'llah, and we know this is good for us, and there are difficulties on the way of observing it, reflection individually. If you don't want to reflect with others, reflect yourself. Reflect within your family. But there might be subject that you could even reflect collectively. So that observance of ordinances of laws and ordinances of Baha'u'llah also becomes a genuine part of our moving forwards towards the civilization that Baha'u'llah has come to do. So I suggest maybe a break here, maybe questions, answers, maybe some comments before we, I think the idea would be that the next we pick two of the laws and go a little bit deeper. But at this time, maybe we could have a break. Sonda-san, is that the right time? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.